I want to go to Jeff Gold. Jeff, I want to ask you, from a prosecutor's perspective, should he be charged? Should Darren Wilson be charged? Why or why not?
Well, hey, that's up to the grand jury. Now, we all know in the routine case, it's prosecutors are accused of leading the grand jury, just what we've heard here they should be doing by the civil rights attorney, but that's not their job. They're a bulwark of the citizenry between the defendant and the police. So the prosecutor's doing the right thing, putting everything in front of this grand jury and letting the people decide. Now, it's only 9 out of 12 that have to decide, and they only have to decide probable cause. So the prosecutor's doing exactly what he needs to do in a very tense situation. Let the people decide. He shouldn't be just indicting because he wants to, as it was a routine case. It's not. And also, he shouldn't put the information there just so that he can no-bill it on purpose. Let the grand jury do its job. It's a rare case that the grand jury gets to do its own real job. This is one of those times.
Okay, well, now, from a prosecutor's perspective, justify what happened outside of the car or otherwise give the officer creative license to use lethal force.
No, if he's got a moment to breathe and think about it and do this in a non-lethal method, he has to do it. Hey, let's not forget about these 2 construction workers or contractors, white guys, that happened to see this whole thing and say that they saw Michael Brown with his hands up saying, wait a minute, I don't have a gun, and then being shot. So there's other evidence here other than the forensics that's either come in or gonna come in. If he had a moment to take a break, he should have taken a break and not shot.
Elder, is he right? Is Jeffrey Gold right? He has a moment, he could pause, he could reassess, or was in this case that not something that he was required to do? There was a struggle in that car.
The problem with this case from the beginning, Joey, is that there's conflicting evidence. You have conflicting physical evidence, and according to the New York Times, there are 6 or 7 African-American witnesses who are testifying in a way consistent with the version given by Officer Darren Wilson. So if you are a prosecutor and your job is not to indict unless you believe there's a probable cause that a crime was committed and this man committed the crime, I don't see how you do that. And a jury of 12 people is not going to find this man guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So as far as I'm concerned, the prosecution, if they indict this man, is doing so for political reasons, not for legal reasons.
Well, how not this was a crime or not a crime, how could we, Jeff Gold, at this point say if he's indicted, he gets acquitted?
Yeah, we can't say it at all, and it's not for us to say. That's why we have a jury system. The grand jury system is different than the later petit jury. The grand jury decides probable cause. So it's just the opposite. They have a lesser standard. Of course they should find there's probable cause here. Then it goes to a petit jury, and then it's their job to find out whether it happened or not. That's the proper way, not to put it in the hand of the executive, of one prosecutor. We put it in the hands of a jury for a reason. That's who should decide.
The issue now I want to take you to outside the car at the time that the use of force was applied and that Michael Brown was shot. What changes the equation here? What does the grand jury have to determine that Michael Brown was doing and that Darren Wilson was doing for them to render an indictment?
Well, first of all, they just have to determine that lethal force was not justified at that particular moment. And if they believe witnesses are credible that said he had his hands up and said, I don't have a gun, and there was time for a thought by the officer, then they have to return an indictment, because you cannot simply follow through on something that may even have been reasonable a little while before. We don't know that, but just assume that at some point it was reasonable. Then it dissipates. He has his hands up. You've done your job. Stop. But that's not what some of the witnesses said. They said after Michael Brown put his hands up, there were shots.